Hello and welcome to a week 4 edition of the rest of season top 150 rankings show. My name is Adam Levitan. Each and every Wednesday on the show, I'm joined by Mike Leone and Mark Dankenbring to talk about how we would draft if the season started tomorrow. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Adam. I'm inspired here coming into week 4. Was with a friend last night who was in the Peace Corps overseas, and he was telling a story about how he won his fantasy football league, had to bike 10 miles into town just to get to a coffee shop with internet to set his lineup each week. And he ended up winning the league. So that's just some great inspiration, I think, to, the dedication that we need to have in season long to thrive and take down our opponents.
Oh, God. As I've had, I didn't feel bad enough about myself already between Dink's charity drive and everything else. Everybody's out there saving the world. Now I got to hear about this guy in the Peace Corps. I'm sitting here grinding my cock on Mac Hollins versus Juwan Johnson. Anyways, Leone, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Waivers has already broken Dink and I's relationship 3 weeks into the season. So predictable outcome there as far as anyone in these managed leagues.
All right. We will move into our rest of season top 150. Want to be very clear. This is for subscribers. We work on this every week, and we don't just pull it out of our ass. We take this very seriously. We think it is useful for trades and waiver pickups and anything else. It's just not some BS list. You can get access if you have DraftKit Pro or our in-season package. I don't want to spend a lot of time at the top here, guys, but I know we debated this a little bit. I got overruled. I would not have Saquon Barkley first overall among all running backs. I think the systemic risk in the Giants, they're hanging on by a thread right now. And they're losing Sterling Shepard. They're losing offensive linemen. They're hanging on by a thread. And I think there's enough systemic risk in Saquon Barkley to not have him number one overall. But his usage profile is absolutely incredible. Certainly better than Jonathan Taylor's. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is just running bad on touchdowns right now, which I knew he would regress on. So, we have him 2 and 3. It's close. I don't want to get into a big debate about this whatsoever. I'll go to Leone. What do you think about the top of running back right now? We had Saquon, I think, 10th to start the year, 11th to start the year or something.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly close between the two. Obviously, Saquon just looks phenomenal, and he was one of the best running back prospects out there. But JT is one of the most talented running backs in the league as well. I'm actually encouraged by JT's usage in a way. He's been used in the receiving game a little bit more than we thought. So in some ways, even though he started out slow, I'm almost more confident that he's surviving right now while he's not scoring touchdowns and the team isn't playing that well. So in some ways, I'm oddly encouraged by JT despite the slow start. So yeah. I think it's a bit of a coin flip. Really, I think Barkley, what we're seeing with our group top 150 is just a little bit more reliance on him as the focal point of the offense.
Sure. While we're talking about the Giants, I think people are saying, hey, what should I do with Kadarius Toney? He hasn't played. What should I do with Wan'Dale Robinson? He hasn't played. They lost Sterling Shepard. Kenny Golladay can't play. Colin Johnson was going to have a huge role for this team. He doesn't. They don't want to give Darius Slayton time. I want to hold Kadarius Toney. I said on the show with Silva yesterday, I actually think it's close between Darnell Mooney and Kadarius Toney. And I know that sounds crazy because Mooney's playing every snap and Toney literally hasn't been out there at all. If Toney can remove his head from his duffel bag, which is what my high school basketball coach used to yell at us, he's going to play and play a ton. And they need him so bad. And so I'm trying to hold Toney. I'm trying to hold Wan'Dale where I can too. I'm a little bit more skeptical on him because we haven't seen him do it at the NFL level. But Mark, what do you think about these Giants guys, Toney and Wan'Dale, versus someone like, say, Darnell Mooney?
I think I'm a little bit more optimistic on Toney than Wan'Dale, just looking at the Giants there, just because we've seen his talent show when he does get on the field. But man, I just have no faith in him getting on the field. He can't even practice. Obviously, new offense there with Brian Daboll, and when you can't practice, you can't play. So I'm not sure really when he'll get on the field. He's certainly a stash for me. I have him on a few teams and I'm not dropping him. I'm going to hold him, but in leagues, I'm not necessarily actively trying to trade for him. I really don't want to give up anything of value. In terms of, them versus Darnell Mooney, I think I still side with Mooney just a little bit because he is out there and, things have just been as bad as they can possibly be for the Bears. So, at least he's getting you 1.5 points on the bench than Toney's 0 and can maybe get there if they up the pass rate. But Yeah, overall, I just think Tony's a stash. I really have no takes on Wan'Dale Robinson. He's not a guy I'm very familiar with or think has too much of an upside here.
Another guy that I think is a bench stash for me as I'm scrolling through these wide receivers is Rondale Moore, because I'm curious what you guys think. But if Rondale Moore gets the Greg Dortch role, it's been a really good role. I mean, you're talking about every down slot role for Greg Dortch, 16% of the targets. I think Rondale Moore is a better player than Greg Dortch. Now, the question is, has Greg Dortch played well enough to take that? So to take a piece of that, I don't think so. I think it'll go back to Rondale Moore, in which case I want Rondale Moore on all my teams. I'm sure some people have dropped him. Leone, what do you think about where Arizona's pass game is at? And by the way, when we're doing these rest of the season top 150, we do have to factor in that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be back in week 7.
Yeah, and that's the wrinkle here is I'm a little torn between the role has been fun. I mean, it's exactly what we wanted for Rondale Moore is what we've seen out of Greg Dortch. And it was one of the reasons I was so bullish on him coming into this season. But with, Marquise Brown still clearly like tops in targets there. We saw it last week. And now you've only got 3 more weeks without DeAndre Hopkins. Like Rondale Moore is going to have to crack the lineup and in a hurry, I think. Not that he can't have that slot role when Hopkins is there, because it'd still be the slot role. It seems like AJ Green is not playing well. He's doubtful this week. Yeah. So it could be just those 3 guys primarily playing at wide receiver. But I am a little bit worried that like he missed his opportunity to an extent, and that even if the role's okay, when you've got Hollywood and DeAndre Hopkins back, even if he's playing the slot role ahead of Dortch, there's not enough there. That said, he's probably like completely free to stash. I've got him on my IR in a few leagues. So he's someone who's available. So I think it's a fine stash just because of the uncertainty.
I want to ask about Austin Ekeler, Mark. There's people out there who are panicked on Austin Ekeler. Obviously, the Chargers just was not the spot for them on Sunday against the Jaguars. They had all the issues with Justin Herbert's ribs, but there was another game where Austin Ekeler only got 4 carries in the whole game. Sony Michel got 5. That said, Austin Ekeler, I mean, his pass game role is so elite. I don't think they're going to continue to play Sony Michel at this rate in really big games. Like if they get, they're 1-2 right now, are the Chargers. If they lose any more games, they got to start extending Austin Ekeler a little bit more, I think. But either way, his role is still really good. So I kind of see Ekeler's a guy I want to buy. And right next to him, Joe Mixon is another guy I definitely want to buy. I understand that he's on a short week with an ankle this week, but Joe Mixon's role has been really good. He's just kind of run bad on efficiency. We know Joe Mixon is a good player, though. So what do you think about buying low on those 2 guys, Mark, Ekeler and Mixon?
Yeah, I'll start with the bad on Ekeler. Sony Michel has the team's only carry inside the 5 this year. And then he and Josh Kelly each have a carry inside the 10. And Ekeler does not have a carry inside the 10 this season. He was 6th among running backs with 12 carries inside the 5 last year and scored 7 touchdowns on those carries. And, he scored, I think, 20 touchdowns total. And we were expecting that number to come down, but like the opportunities have just been taken away from him at this point. So unless those return, I think that's, a huge downgrade to his fantasy profile. In terms of pass catching, I think things line up with him pretty well. Rashawn Slater is out at left tackle for the Chargers, which is going to hurt their pass protection, which likely means, a few more dump downs to Ekeler. Keenan Allen is coming back, so he will have some more competition kind of in that low A-dot area. But I think he's a great buy in PPR leagues. The Joey Bosa is also out. Like I think the Chargers are going to play from behind a little bit more moving forward. And we've seen just how many dump offs he can get and rack up the catches. And he's obviously talented with the ball in his hand. So I'm buying him more in PPR leagues and half or any standard league people out there. I would not be buying him necessarily. Joe Mixon is actually my, big buy in the section we have coming at the end of the show and moves to make. I think he's a great buy low target, and I'll kind of hit later on, on his metrics and why I really want to buy low on him later.
We have a changing of the guard at the top. Mark Andrews ahead of Travis Kelce in our tight end rankings now. I don't think this was crazy from the beginning. Mark Andrews had that outlandish year. Last year, Travis Kelce is 33 years old. No matter what you want from pass catchers, like, Tyreek Hill is out, Mecole Hardman's going to go off, Tyreek Hill is out, Travis Kelce is going to go. They still got to be able to do it. It's not like the running back position where if a guy gets 20 carries, he's likely going to do it. And so I think we're seeing the Chiefs kind of scuffle around a little bit right now. Offensively, they had that big week 1 game. However, that was against the freaking Arizona Cardinals, maybe the worst defense in the entire league. So, Leone, we were high on Juju before the season. He's had 2 reasonable games. He hasn't gone off yet. He's had 2 reasonable games, but it's been kind of like shaky. And then now we have Travis Kelce behind Mark Andrews. We also have Mahomes kind of in this this mid-range here, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how we systemically rank quarterbacks as well, because people are comparing quarterbacks to other positions. So where you at with the Chiefs right now and everything going on here?
Yeah, I'm holding pretty steady with the Chiefs. I think with Kelsey, I don't really have any concerns. Andrews passing him is more about Andrews than it is about Kelsey. And Andrews with, an absurd target share through 3 weeks, there's nothing that seems like it's going away. And the offense has continued to play at like an even or even a slightly positive pass rate over expectation. So it just wheels up for Andrews. Basically, all the concerns are gone and all the hopes are coming to fruition. So that's why he passes Kelsey. Kelsey, the clear one option for a Kansas City team that like they're going to throw the ball a ton. Like they're very top. I think they're either first or second in pass rate over expectation. They are every single year. Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's weird that we haven't seen more production out of the wide receiver position. I think some of that's just flukiness. They had a bad game against the Colts. They had a kind of a weird game against the Chargers where there was a defensive touchdown in there that took away a possession. And we've had a lot of receiving touchdowns go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So look for that to revert. I'm still in on Juju. I'm a little bit more cautiously optimistic than I am blindly optimistic, but based on the fact that Sky Moore can't get onto the field and MVS really just seems like a guy. Like I think all the opportunity is there for Juju. His one really bad game, he was lined up with JC Jackson. So, if he finds the end zone in either week 1 or week 3, he's got a 20-point outing and it looks way, way better. So he's the guy that I'm most bullish on probably relative to the market.
Would you drop Sky Moore right now in kind of standard sized format? Sky Moore not only has he not been able to get the field as a receiver, he muffed 2 punts in the last game. I don't know if that matters. Would you be dropping Sky Moore?
In a regular 12-team league with like a 5-person bench, I would be dropping Sky Moore. I don't think you can realistically hold. He might not play for 3 more weeks and then like just pick him up in a few more weeks.
Yeah. And on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, everybody, I mean, if you read any like sell high column or whatever out there, everybody wants to say sell Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I get that he's getting outsnapped by Jerick McKinnon right now. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out there, he's getting pretty high value touches. They're scheming stuff to him in the pass game, and he's kind of involved around the goal line. So I'm okay selling Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I don't know what you can really get for him. Leone, do you have any feel on where the trade market is with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and what you'd be trying to do?
Yeah, if you don't need a running back, I think someone like Rashad Bateman, Devonta Smith, like these young receivers that have, flashed a little bit, but they haven't hit every week, you might be able to get are pretty interesting. If you're trying to go 1-to-1 at the running back position, I don't know if someone's panicking on the Swift injury or maybe like an AJ Dillon type who we have a little bit further ahead in the top 150, I'd be looking for possibly, George Kittle, who had a quiet week after coming back from injury. Like those are the types I'm looking for. You're probably not going to get like a massive home run, but I think all those would be pretty big wins that are at least somewhat realistic trade targets for CEH.
Yeah, I thought George Kittle's usage was pretty good. He's going to have some big games. Obviously, the volume is going to be an issue and he'll have some really poor games also. Speaking of big games, Romeo Dobbs was so impressive in his kind of breakout spot. We knew it was a breakout spot because Christian Watson was out, Sammy Watkins was out, Lazard and Cobb were like sick for much of the week. We now have Romeo Dobbs as the best Packers wide receiver to own. I don't think you can really trade for him right now because like who's going to want to give him up after what he did last week? So it's kind of an awkward spot if you want to try to acquire him. I would probably wait for a bad game, but I don't know. What do you think about the trade market right now, Mark, for Romeo Dobbs and his rest of season chances of holding on to this number 1 role?
Yeah, I think if you're, maybe have 3 or 4 running backs kind of and a couple in the lower, RB2 range, you can maybe flip one of those for Dobbs and just always, trades kind of roster construction and what you need versus what your opponent needs. I think he's a great ad. I mean, we have him ranked as a top Green Bay wide receiver. I think that's fair at this point. He's had a 20% target per route run every week. And then he got up to 95% of the routes, as you mentioned, without Sammy Watkins and Christian Watson this past week. Sammy Watkins is on IR, so he's at least going to be out a few more weeks. And then Watson, pulled a hammy and is a speed receiver. So I'm not sure how much he'll be able to get out on the field. So yeah, I mean, I like Dobbs a lot. I think at this point we can, confidently rank him as kind of like a low end wide receiver 3 and borderline wide receiver 4. And that, in leagues with where you start 3 wide receivers in a flex, like that's valuable. So I think trading, like I said, maybe a low end RB2 or high end RB3 for Dobbs is good at this point, because I think, with these rookies and the talk from Rodgers, like they're talking him up, I think he's going to continue to ascend a bit here.
I want to ask about quarterbacks from a macro sense, Leonie. We talked about this a lot during the preseason. It's come to fruition in a big way. I mean, Hurts, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson are like so outrageous. We still do not have them very high in our rankings. Now, people are going to say, how can you have X player over Y quarterback? There's still the scarcity issue at quarterback. We can still get really good players down here deeper. I'm just curious, Leonie, if we're too low on the quarterback position as a whole here. And if you were doing 1-for-1 trades, like let's say you were messing around with, I don't know, like I have one team where I have Trevor Lawrence as my starting quarterback in a 1 QB league, 12-team league. Should I be looking to upgrade that through skill players? I hate giving up skill players to get quarterbacks. And like, who's really trading away Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen right now anyway? So how do you think about macro quarterback right now and how we have it?
Yeah, just to be transparent, it's really difficult. And it's one of the positions that I like to be at least tethered to the market. And what I mean is like how the league values quarterbacks. I try to at least be somewhat close to that, because if you're so far off, it just doesn't, it doesn't do you any good. But we are seeing as, Brady's Bucks and his wide receivers and offensive line have issues. We're seeing, Dak with the injury, and all of a sudden kind of some of the back end of the top 12 quarterbacks start to go down, like the top 6 become even more valuable. And we're also seeing Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts like hit their bull cases. So that's why we've moved them up in the top 150. As far as 1-for-1 trades, I think a lot of this comes down to team strength. So that team that you have Trevor Lawrence on, if that's like a really strong, like if you have a lot of depth on that team at skill player, like maybe you can pair, Trevor Lawrence with, a mid-tier kind of, I don't know, let's say Trevor Lawrence and Terry McLaurin to try and get like Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert, that type of deal. I think maybe you could make, and that might even look like a small loss for you according to our top 150, but I think that's probably what you would have to do in order to upgrade the position. It is a very difficult position to trade. You're basically looking for someone who has 2 quarterbacks and hit on one, or someone who's got like Dak and like doesn't have a quarterback at all. Like you need to find a pretty specific dynamic to either be able to trade away or trade for a quarterback.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to, let's go to Allen Robinson, man. I was in on Allen Robinson before the season, but I was also like a bit wary that he's just like toast. I'm no film guy. He does not look good out there. It strikes me that if he doesn't score touchdowns in games, he's going to hurt you. Like I don't see like 9, 120, 0 from Allen Robinson in this offense at his current skill level. We docked him 14 spots in the rankings this past week. I don't know if you view this as a sell opportunity, Mark, or maybe a buy if people are panicking. I'd be one of the people that are like, get Allen Robinson off my team. So maybe that speaks to how the market's thinking also. What do you think about Allen Robinson?
I'm not necessarily panicking. I'm kind of holding at this point. I'm not, aggressively trying to buy low or really sell low on him. His targets have risen each of the past few weeks. He's gotten some red zone looks, some end zone looks. We've talked about his 2 touchdown game in week 2 that, one got taken off the board. But, I think it's okay. I think the biggest surprise here is that Tyler Higbee has, been the number 2 there in targets. And I'm not sure if that's going to continue. I still kind of think Allen Robinson is a more talented player than Tyler Higbee, despite what we've seen the last couple seasons. And then in the Rams offense, like they don't throw to the running backs hardly at all. Obviously Cooper Kupp's going to take up a lot of stuff, but I agree with you. He's probably going to need a touchdown to reach any sort of upside. But like, I think, most weeks he'll probably end up with 5 or 6 catches for hopefully 60 or 70 yards. And then if he gets in the end zone, that's great. So, I don't think he's a wide receiver 2. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 or lower at this point. But I do expect the Rams to get it going a little more. And again, it's a wide receiver on a new team. We've seen some big names get traded last few seasons that have succeeded right away. But I think Allen Robinson, I'm expecting a little bit better. But at this point, I think he's just kind of a hold. And if you have him, hopefully things get better.
People are going to say, Leonie, how can you guys have DJ Moore 42nd overall, DJ Moore is total dust. You have DJ Moore ahead of Patrick Mahomes. You have DJ Moore ahead of George Kittle and Drake London. I gave my take yesterday on DJ Moore. I hope you guys listened to the podcast with Silva. Obviously, the catch rate is going to improve. The Panthers aren't going to average 58 plays per game for the whole season. That said, I don't want to put my head in the sand here and say that everything's going to be okay, because Baker looks worse than Kyle Allen, worse than the corpse of Cam Newton. So what do you say to the people who have DJ Moore? And by people, I mean me. So what do you say to the DJ Moore people?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's echoing what you said, which is they've only averaged like 54.3 offensive plays per game. You know, generally the worst teams average about 60 plays per game. So they're going to run more plays. They've also had weird game scripts where, as bad of a team as they are, their expected pass rate on the season is only 59%. So they have a neutral pass rate over expectation. I would expect that to rise over the course of the season as well. So if they're going to run more plays and more of those plays are going to be pass attempts, we're going to see his 6 targets a week hopefully get to like 8 targets a week, which is a meaningful difference. Like that's, you know, a 33% increase over what he's seeing right now. And then the catch rate thing's like absurd. This is a guy, we know he's talented because he's young, he's 25, and he's had over 1,150 receiving yards 3 consecutive seasons. So I'm holding firm on DJ Moore just because I don't know what else you would do with him. Like, he's not a sell low. I think you might even want to buy low in some leagues. I think he's going to be okay. Sometimes guys just get off to really slow starts and it doesn't work. I don't want to like act like I'm not worried at all though, because as you said, Baker looks terrible. The offensive scheme, I've seen some stuff from some people who are a lot smarter than me in terms of diagnosing, you know, real football. Sounds like it's a bit of a disaster as well. But systemically, like, let's see what happens when they run like an average amount of plays and have to throw a little bit. And like, I think it'll get better.
All right. I want to get to moves we make. We're adding a new segment to the show this week. Moves we would make. The last question, though, before we get to that, I want to ask Mark is about how we think about Khalil Herbert. Dave Montgomery's injury does not sound overly serious. I don't even see many details on it yet. They keep calling him day to day. Khalil Herbert obviously can play. Khalil Herbert should be on all teams. I'm sure he's not on waivers. And anyone whose league is listening to this, I think Khalil Herbert continues to earn more, though. Like, even if Dave Montgomery plays this week or next week, I still see Herbert playing at least 33% of the snaps, if not more. So how do you think about ranking these guys rest of season? And would you be trying to acquire Montgomery or Herbert or something like that?
It all comes down to the length of David Montgomery's injury here for full rest of season rankings. But, you know, new regime there, new head coach at least. Montgomery's on the last year of his deal. So like, I you know, there's obviously a case to be made for Herbert's ascension here. And he's played so well whenever he's gotten the opportunity. You know, this week he's kind of one of those handcuff backs that if he does get the start and Montgomery's out, then you know, I'm pretty much playing him any league I have him. So very confident there. I could see this becoming potentially like a Zeke and Tony Pollard conversation with these two guys going down the stretch, just in a worse offense, you know, so I think it's kind of like a RB3 and flex category if they're both healthy rest of season. I agree. I could see this becoming more of a timeshare if DeMont comes back and is, you know, limited in any sort of capacity. So obviously, you know, Herbert in the short term with Montgomery banged up, I think it's great. We've seen the Bears just absolutely run the crap out of the ball, and I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. So yeah, I mean, you know, good player to have, and definitely picking him up if I get the chance.
I want to get to the segment, but real quick, Leonie, I think this is a good question from Patrick. He says, WTF can I get for Chase Edmonds when he's my RB2? There's a lot of people out there with underperforming players that they took in like the 8th, 9th, 10th round. And it's like, well, what can I do with Chase Edmonds now? I'm not selling on guys who are like, what can you get for Chase Edmonds? Nothing. I mean, nobody's gonna give you anything for Chase Edmonds. I'd much rather hold him. He's still a good pass catcher and a good player and a good offense. Like, I'd be holding Chase Edmonds. But yeah, what would you say to Patrick or anyone else who has these kind of players like Chase Edmonds right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would check out the top 150, maybe try and see if there's similarly ranked players who also don't have a ton of hype yet. You know, like J.K. Dobbins probably has a bit more juice over the course of the season than Chase Edmonds. Breece Hall is someone that I like buying low on. Like, so I think you maybe Travis Etienne type, like those guys that are like similarly like somewhat disappointing through 3 weeks, but you like them a little bit more. But yeah, it's hard. It's not like you're going to get a big win. I mean, Chase Edmonds did have the 2 touchdowns last week, so it might be a good time to sell if you're worried about him. But I mean, sometimes, and similar to the DJ Moore situation, like you just got to hold these guys. You're not going to, the guys I'm selling low on, I mentioned this on Establish the Edge last week. It's guys like, Najee Harris or Derrick Henry, where they've got such we're so anchored to what their preseason value was, and they have such name recognition that 2 or 3 bad weeks, like you can maybe get someone that they think they're buying low, and you like, those are the types of players to sell. When you start getting into guys that were drafted the 6th round later who are disappointing, you're not going to get anything for them. So it's really either patience or finding, guys that are also disappointing who you happen to like a bit more.
All right. We've gone long enough. We get to the segment that everybody wants. They don't even know they want it because they didn't know it was coming, but everybody wants it. One move to make. One move to make. I'll start with Mark. Go ahead on your one move to make.
Yeah, mine's to buy Joe Mixon. He's second in NFL with 7 carries inside the 10-yard line, has scored 0 touchdowns, also has 4 attempts inside the 5, 0 touchdowns. Last year, he was 4th in the NFL with carries inside the 5, and he scored on 50% of those carries, and also on a third of his carries inside the 10. Which he was also top 5 in attempts. So, the Bengals offense been off to a little bit of a sluggish start, yet he's still gotten a decent amount of attempts. We should have expected him to score probably 2 touchdowns at this point, and he has none on the ground. He's starting to ice, Samaje Perine a little bit in routes run each week. He's played over 70% of the 2-minute snaps in the first 3 weeks. He is still coming off the field on 3rd downs, but that's okay because his target per routes run are really high at 21% on the season. So, I'm buying Joe Mixon and trying to sell maybe like a Drake London or like a wide receiver 2. And then maybe someone you said like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Kareem Hunt, or, trying to pair like 2, wide receiver 2 or RB2 to get a Joe Mixon owner that is, underwhelmed by his performance thus far.
I've been doing these 2-for-1 trades for literally 20 years. You get people to think that you're getting some great offer. When you get the best player in the deal, that's what I'm always talking about, man. I want elite players. I'll package a bunch of my secondary players to get an elite player every time and figure it out later. Leone, it is your turn for move to make.
Yeah, first off, shout out to Mark. Joe Mixon is one of the top players on the by Leone underperforming running back model for this week. So
let's go.
Good identifying that there. Man, for me, it's tough. There's a few guys that I'm buying low on, but I think Breece Hall is a really good candidate right now before he does too much more. What I'm torn on with Breece Hall is this team has thrown an unsustainable amount of pass attempts, and most of his expected fantasy points have come through the air. But at the same time, I think it's really good that he's been in on those situations that they trust him as a receiving back. That was some concern heading into the year with like that sort of Michael Carter strong suit. We saw his snaps rise to their highest point last week in week 3. So this is sort of the classic rookie trajectory, especially for a top running back that can basically do it all. I think now is the time to go out and get Breece Hall. So if you can trade like a DK Metcalf type for Breece Hall, I think I would do it. Maybe even, Jamal Williams, who gets a big boost in value short term. If you don't need that short term, like you don't absolutely have to win the next few weeks, being a little bit more patient, playing longer term with the end of season upside with Breece Hall is a sharp future move for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who can see as many targets as Breece Hall has seen through the first 3 games of his career, I want to buy. Now, I think when Zach Wilson gets in there, running back target rate will go down, but I still think Breece Hall is good. I like getting like a Allen Robinson for Breece Hall, like give me Breece Hall, every single time for sure. All right. My move to make this week, trade for Chris Godwin. Not only did he go to Penn State, okay. Not only is he a great dude, which, I've been told, I don't know him personally, obviously, but he's not actually re-injure his knee. And so there's a lot of people being out there, oh, Chris Godwin had the ACL. He's done. Hey, listen, he pulled his hamstring. Maybe it was related. Maybe not. It's just a hamstring pull. They didn't put him on IR. He has a chance to practice this week. They need him so badly. I mean, their offense is absolutely inept right now. They need Chris Godwin getting open out of the slot. I think immediately, and as soon as he comes back, we can start projecting very quickly 7, 8, 9 targets for Chris Godwin. And so if somebody is panicked, maybe they're losing, Chris Godwin sucks, he can't stay on the field, I'd be going to get Chris Godwin. All right. That is going to do it for this rest of season Top 150 show. I know we didn't get to everybody's concerns. If we got to everybody's personal concerns on their own team, we would never in a million years be able to finish the whole show in a timely fashion. You can consult the rest of season top 150 for more personal questions. For Leone, for Mark, for producer Adam, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.